Antebellum, released online last week, marketed as a horror film with a touch of mystery, and it did end up being exactly that. The title Antebellum is a term used to describe a period leading up to a war. It has mostly been used specifically for the period leading up to the Civil War in America. That's kind of where we start off. The film opens with a long tracking shot with the camera moving through a cotton plantation between black slaves and white Confederate soldiers. We meet the main character, a young slave named Eden, clearly just brought on to the plantation. She's played by Janelle Monáe. We have this quick introduction scene, and then we skip to 6 weeks later, where we can see how much time has already changed her. She's subdued, quiet, obedient, and tries to keep her head down mostly to avoid being beaten or worse. And for a while, the film becomes this torture porn dressed in period clothes and seems not to really go anywhere with this, and actually even seemingly has some weird, mistakes and inconsistencies in it. And that kind of goes on until the end of the first act. The whole story has a very clear three-act structure, with the first one that I just described, which is quite average. The second act then opens with a massive twist, which I will obviously not spoil, and the minutes after that twist, the whole second act, that's the best part of the film for me. Despite the fact that as a whole it is fairly shallow, and some of the story beats don't make that much sense. There is for a while a great sense of mystery as you try to piece together the two acts and understand how exactly they fit together, how they mesh. Unfortunately, as soon as you do figure that out and the third act starts, there really only is one way for the film to go, and it becomes rather predictable and dull and not very adventurous. The sense of suspense and mystery is suddenly gone, and we're kind of once again mostly in the physical violence territory. Now, I will say this. I think that the key problems, the three acts being so uneven and the fact that the movie blows its load a bit too early, result directly from its very concept. And on the one hand, that concept is interesting and cool, even if it resembles a lot one of M. Night Shyamalan Ding Dong's movies, which I will not say which one. But on the other hand, by design, it doesn't work very well as a feature-length movie. It's too long to remain interesting, to stretch that concept alone so far, but at the same time, the film doesn't do enough to flesh out its characters and try to fill the runtime that way. The people that populate this film are mostly one-dimensional and uninteresting, and there is one character moment which is so poorly written that I just couldn't believe it actually happened that way. Also, there is a problem with the plot which goes like this. Act 1, you spot problems and weird inconsistencies which I talked about. Act 2, they start to make perfect sense with the new information. Act 3, and after the movie ends, the longer you think about it, after you have the whole picture, the less sense it makes, the less it holds up. So, despite good acting from Janelle Monáe and a few beautiful shots, I think Antebellum ends up being rather dull. It takes a concept that seems interesting on paper, but then proves that it doesn't really work all that well in execution.